He lives in Del Boca Vista now.
Oh, okay. Um, t- t- uh, let me just get to my final couple wrap up questions here. Um, we always turn the story into the U.S. when the U.S. even sticks their toe in the water. The U.S. wants to pull its toe out of the water. That's my guess. What does Israel want to do? Does Bibi really have the appetite to be in a
Yeah.
war of attrition, as you talked about it with Iran, until he gets to regime change? Because yesterday, the vice president of the United States said something to the effect of, well, if the Israelis want to take out Khamenei, fine. It's
Okay.
kind of like over to you, boys. So,
Let me try and do this in a as brief as a way as possible. But before that, I have to say that Joe made such great points, and for the benefit of our listeners or viewers, everything that he said he plagiarized from his own article in today's New Republic. So
Thank you, sir. You're very kind.
I think if you want this succinctly, you should read it. But okay, let me go and slightly do this from 50,000 feet, not B2, but Netanyahu is driven by a messianic fervor about Iran. It has to do with his father, who was a historian. His father came up with a theory of cycles of Jewish history, according to which, since the Hellenists and then the Romans and the Crusaders and so on, every few hundred years there is a group that is trying to annihilate the Jewish people.
only Alon, when I ask for a concise answer, goes back to the ancient Greeks. Let me take it back from ancient Greece, and I'll work my way forward in real time.
The Hellenists were the ancient
Okay.
Greeks. Come on.
I
All
know.
right.
I know that.
Right now, the existential threat is what he calls Islamofascism. And he has been put in place to fight Islamofascism. Okay, fast forward.
On behalf of Judeo-fascism, but let's
Wait, I'm
not deal with
getting
that,
there.
right?
Why are you
Uh,
ruining my stand up here? Why? All right. Now,
sorry, I didn't mean to step on your punchline here.
fast forward to where we are. For the last 20 years, probably more, Netanyahu has been walking around with a T-shirt that says "Today is 1938." 1938 is now. There's a Hitler in Tehran, and there is him in the war cabinet room in London in 1940, and only he can stop this. Okay, now he does want regime change. He couldn't care less about the consequences or ramifications. He thinks the U.S. will clean up his mess. This is a guy who, in September 2002, testifying in front of the House Armed Services Committee, encouraged the U.S. to invade Iraq using the flimsy and disingenuous argument that this would reverberate around the Middle East and topple the regime in Iran. 2002. Here we are 23 years later. So, yes, my answer to you, which began with Hellenist times and gets to June 2025, David, is yes, he wants regime change, but he is not stupid. He is an experienced man and he is a smart man. He probably is thinking about what I said at the outset. Know when to leave the table, and now should be a good time. Thing is, he's euphoric now, and euphoria is not a good political advisor.
Right. There's an adrenaline rush.
Oh, please. Illegal quantities, Joe.
In lethal quantities.
Yeah, lethal quantities. Okay, Mr. Sanger, are you still here? Or have you left the country yet? Okay, you're still here. That's your microphone's off, and so I want to ask the last question to you, unless you say something and these other guys feel compelled to jump in. But my question is, you're about to go get on a plane and go to the NATO summit. And it's going to be an interesting meeting. The Europeans are going to promise more money. They're going to say, we're doing that to do what you want, President Trump, but they're actually doing it so they can live without President Trump. There's going to be tensions over Ukraine. And because summits are always like this, the breaking news of the week is going to dominate. This story is going to dominate. What do you expect from the NATO summit?
So the Europeans, I think, are quite divided on this. You've heard the new German Chancellor, Chancellor Merz, completely support the Israeli attacks on Iran. And though I haven't heard him on this, I suspect he probably supports going after the nuclear program as well. I think you're going to hear probably a different view from the French. I think the British are going to line up unenthusiastically with this. They desperately want to keep the focus on Ukraine for this because their existential threat right now is Russia. And in order to sell the increases in of 3.5% for military, another 1.5% for roadways, associated things that you can, if you stretch it, call part of defense spending. But remember, our highway system is the Eisenhower defense highway system, right? I can't remember the exact phrase, but you see those signs. So they really want to keep that going. And all they want from Donald Trump is that for the roughly 18, 19 hours that he is on the ground there, not to blow it up, right? That they are recognizing that there's not going to be another package of significant military aid for Ukraine from the United States. And all they want to do is make sure that President Trump doesn't get in the way of what they're going to do. But the question hanging over this is, can they really replace the United States in this effort? And my guess is that the president is going to say, I'm so busy in the Middle East, and where I don't want to be, and I've got to go focus again on the Pacific, where you don't want to be, that this is your problem.
Yeah, no, I think that seems like a very, on target analysis. And the only amendment I might make is that I think some of the Europeans are thinking, can we go it alone for 3.5 more years? It might the U.S. figure back into this equation. They can't count on it, obviously, but it's possible.